Hi everybody, I am Husky Light. Thank you for stopping by. This is going to be part 2 of the hero's journey, and it's been quite a while, and to be honest, I have dreaded this, absolutely dreaded it, because I know there's certain things that I have to go through and talk about in order to get to the other side, in order to get through the hero's journey. Now, I explained it in the first part, and I've put a link up to it up here as well if you've not seen the first part, how everybody at some point in their life, or those who are going to awaken, will go through a process similar to what is called the hero's journey, and the process that you have to go through to get there. Now, it can take years for this to happen. It can go very slowly, up until the point where you actually realise you're awakening, or you can go through it very, very quickly, and your chakras can open extremely quickly and violently, as did in my case. But again, this is all predetermined before you come down here, before you're born. This is one of the contracts you make when it's time for you to awaken. If you're going to, that is, you will do it slowly, or you will do it in whatever way you agreed to. Why I chose to do it this way, I have no idea. I really don't. I'm sure if I knew up there how difficult it was going to be, or how stressful or fearful and everything else, I probably would have said, no, let's just do this slowly. And to a certain extent throughout my life, I probably have gone through the awakening process slowly, but then there's a point where you become aware that you're connected, and when that happens, all happens very, very quickly for some people. So this is the one I've been dreading. I've been trying to write notes on it all week, and I actually got a message through from my guides and angels saying stop trying to script it and just come out and say it, else it's just going to get more difficult. So thank you. So I'm just gonna, I've written down a few bits and bobs and pointers, and I'm just going to come out with it. So also, this is the woo-woo stuff, okay? But this is the not so good woo-woo stuff. This is not miracles. Well, it is miracles, but I think what happens is, in order to finally reach connection, in my case, with your guides and angels, and get connection, you have to go through certain fears. You have to face your own fears. You have to go through fear purging, healing, clearing. You have to go inwards, you have to be isolated, you have to deal with internal issues that you've had all your life. You have to deal with the relationship you had with your parents, the relationship you have with your family, relationships in general, getting out of the karma that you create as you go through life, repeating things. How do you stop that cycle? How do you stop that pattern? And clear the program that's been put on you and you've grown up with, before you can see the truth, becoming aware of yourself. And so this part is going to be the darker side of things. So I'm warning you now, if you don't want to listen to the darker side of things, if you want to stay all love and light, and this is all part of love and light, it really is. It's just becoming aware that you have two sides to you, and you have to accept, and release and clear and heal the darker side of yourself. This is why it's brought up. This is why you go through an awakening in the first place, because at the end of the day, everything is love, but you have to see the darkness to embrace the light, to come through it. And people will do this in completely different ways. They will do it on a very extreme basis, like I did, or they will do it on a much subtler basis, and it'll be dragged out over lots of years. But for Mother Gaia is ascending. We are going through earth changes, universe, planetary changes, towards peace, towards happiness, and we have to get our consciousness to a certain point. 51% of us have to do this, get to a certain point where we can start to be able to realize who we really are and change the world, realize that we are spirit in human bodies having an experience. So to get to this point, we have to go to raise up in consciousness, to go with the flow of the energies that are coming in from the universe in order to help us awaken, to raise up, to go from 3D through 4D into 5D and beyond. There are certain processes we need to go through, that we need to become aware of. So with the hero's journey, and it's very much like the twin flame journey as well, I've come to realise it's just that, right, I'll go through the first bit. We've gone through, the last video I did in part 1 was just normal life, milling about, gossiping, drinking, doing all that sort of thing, not thinking there's much more to life than this. We go to work, we come home, we go to sleep, we eat, go out with our friends. There's not a lot else out there. We are very much a slave at that point. We're very much asleep. We're one of the sheep at that point, but we don't realise it. We don't have a problem with it because we don't know anything different. But the second part is the call. What is it you want the most in your life? What is it you seek? What do you have a choice of? Is it love that you're looking out for? Is it love that you want in your life? Is it love of humanity? You start to be given choices that you have to make throughout this journey as you ascend. Then there's the big push forward, the resistance that you put up in change. A lot of people don't like change. I went kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to change at the time, but things come in to make you change. And in my case, they came in a very big supernatural way. And then overcoming fears, facing your fears, overcoming them, learning to accept yourself, learning to accept the light and the dark that goes on in our world, learning to learn and accept the energy that comes through from the universe, which helps us to ascend. We can take it in a dark way or a light way because we have a certain amount of control over it. We have a certain amount of free will, and we're co-creators. Our thoughts create reality, no matter how you look at it. So this second part is going to be the darker side of things. It's going to be leading up to Night of the Dark Soul, and part of the Night of the Dark Soul, and where it goes from there. So I'm going to put up a picture of the hero's journey and carry on talking. And yeah, I've warned you. it's bad and it's kooky. Some of it is very woo-woo, but again, this was what I had to break through in order to get to the other side, in order to see the light properly and to realise really what was going on in the world. Okay, so I think it starts off with the call. I'd been going through my normal life. I'd been doing whatever I said in part 1, as most of us do. And then I started to go through a series of tower moments of complete disasters. I'd already met my twin flame. I met him 16th of September 2011. And things were going fine there. But at the same time, I was having an affair with my dark twin flame, with the false twin flame, which was very, very difficult at the time, because every time I tried to move away from that, I'd end up going back. And now I know why I was going back, because there was things I had to learn with that. But anyway, I'm toddling along. I'm being a normal, asleep person. I have no interest in religion or God, or I knew there was a God, I knew there was a creator, but it didn't really pay much attention to it because I'd blocked that side out a long, long time ago after losing my my mum, my dad, and both brothers, my entire family over a short period of time. And I thought, well, if there's a God, why is he doing that? Why did he take them away from me? And I turned my back on it all. Anyway, by the by, so I'm doing my normal life. I decided to start up, or my real twin, decided we would start up a wedding cake business together, which is what we started. Now, he was a chef. He taught me how. I'd never made cakes in my life, but I was very creative. So it's something that I found that I could do really well. And we worked together for a little bit, and then he started to step back. Now, what he was doing was starting to move away and leave me, but I didn't know that at the time. But anyway, we're doing all that. Also, as well, I'm making wedding cakes. I am poisoning people. I'm filling them with sugar. It was totally the wrong job to be in. But again, I didn't realise that at the time because I wasn't awake. So I'm toddling along making wedding cakes. I'm also drinking heavily. Not really heavily, but heavily enough to get through the stress of being in that particular business, because it's ridiculously stressful. Ridiculous. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be on time. I was doing it completely on my own. I was going to exhibitions. I was advertising. I was doing everything. Meeting couples that were going to get married, and it was, oh my God, it was stressful. Having deadlines to meet and everything else. So I'm going through all of that. And then my best mate died from cancer within a couple of months of her mum actually dying of the same thing. That started to tip me over the edge at that point, and I just started drinking really, really heavily. And then the other tower moments came. I couldn't afford the tax on my car, so suddenly the council came and towed my car away and shoved it and crushed it into a little box. That was that. I'd lost my car. Then we had a sewerage problem in our back garden where the drains come down. They come down through several houses underneath the ground, obviously, and for some reason there was a dip under my garden where it was all collecting, and it kept blocking. So I had the water board around constantly, every couple of weeks, saying it's blocked, we need to go in the back garden, we need to clear it all, blast water down it and everything else. They ended up digging up the entire garden in the end, and this just went on for months and months and months. It was really, really bad. That stressed me out completely. On top of it, then on top of that, we had a flea infestation within the house. God knows how it started. Well, obviously I have dogs and everything, but they were all defleed regularly and everything was fine. Never had a problem with them before. My dogs are like 7 and 8 years old. But suddenly we had that, and I ended up, it didn't matter how much money I spent on getting the house defleed and fumigated, and they just kept coming back, and it ended up with I had to throw away most of my wardrobe, my daughter's wardrobe, bedding, carpets, curtains, just about everything ended up in the bin. Everything just had to get cleared out. By this point, I'm really drinking by this point. And an old friend of mine, which happened to be the husband of my best friend who died, he'd started being friends with me, nothing else, just friends. But he was just feeding me brandy all the time. Every time he came round, he'd bring round a bottle of, and did you do that with somebody who's drinking? And it's like, oh yeah, brilliant, thank you very much. Let's drown myself in another bottle. And it went on like this for probably, I think it was about over 3 or 4, it was a 3-month period. Everything happened really quickly, and it was extremely, ridiculously stressful. I'm trying to make wedding cakes in the middle of all this. I've got my twin, who was pretty much backed off from me completely. And he's got his own problems, and I couldn't help him with his own problems, and he wouldn't help me. And things were getting ridiculously stressful, and I think it got, and then I started going wrong with making my cakes. I started making mistakes with them. I started, the design wasn't quite the way they wanted it, or it didn't taste right, or something. There was always something, and I think or I didn't get the cake there on time. Something went wrong. It started to go wrong every time, and the more it went wrong, the more self-confidence I lost, and the more worried I got about it, and the more stressed I got about it, until it became such a fearful thing for me to even try and make a cake for somebody. And it had to stop. And it was at this point, I think I remember sort of crying and thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do now? What the hell? And I started getting pushed onto YouTube. I'm going, why am I going on YouTube? What? Why would I do that? And all became clear later on. I started to go through, I remember my twin flame saying, you've got a choice to make. Is it love or money? And I had no idea why he'd said it to me. And I started dwelling on this, and I started thinking about it and thinking, what does he mean by that? What's going on here? And it got to the point where I didn't want to be around people around me. When I started going out, I was picking up on their energies. I was picking up on the way they were feeling. And I didn't particularly realise it at the time, but that's what I was doing. And I was just picking up all these energies from everybody. So if anybody was sad, I was sad, or it made it worse. And I got very, very depressed. I got very drinking heavily. Everything started to go extremely downhill, very, very fast. I also, so when we get into start getting into the woo-woo stuff, there is an awful lot of it, and I'm only going to go through 2 or 3 examples of what I went through, because probably they were the worst. But there was one particular day, I was doing a wedding cake for someone. It was one of the last ones that I did, actually, and I was behind on the deadline, and I'd phoned the hotel up, and they said, yeah, I said, I'm going to have to bring the cake down, but have you got kitchen facilities there, because I need to put some finishing touches on the cake, and I'm going to have to do it at the hotel. So the guy that was there said, yeah, no problem, you just need to, as long as you're here before 11 o'clock that night, 11 o'clock, hey, 11 o'clock that night, that's fine, and you can get it done, we'll leave you to it. The wedding was the next day. So by the time I'd got down there and found this place, which was in the middle of nowhere, next to a church, right out in the sticks somewhere, it was 11 o'clock at night. And this was one of the first major synchronistic, nasty, supernatural things that I went through. And because I've found that when I experience things, I don't particularly, it's not always a feeling, or it manifests into the physical. It's crazy. Or it did back then. Excuse me. So anyway, just before, as I'm getting ready to leave to go to the hotel, I'm trying to get the bits of cake together and get everything I need together to finish it at the hotel, and I'm trying to play music on my iPhone, just to try and keep things light and keep things going. And I had a playlist of songs on YouTube through my iPhone, which I decided I was going to play. Anyway, it wouldn't play them at all. And then suddenly it started playing the song Hotel California. And I don't have that song in my playlist. It's not one of my songs. And I couldn't turn it off. The phone wouldn't switch off. I couldn't stop it. It just kept playing. And I'm like, oh, okay then. And I'm panicking about the cake. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll just put it on the side and just let it play. And it kept playing Hotel California, which is a weird song to start with. And that didn't set the night off to a good start. It's quite a scary song to start with. And here's where it starts getting worse. Packed up the car, went to the hotel, got there just before 11. It was quite a small hotel, and I went into reception, found the reception guy, the hotel manager, told him I was here, and he said, right, he said, if you want to go back down to your car and drive the car around to the back kitchens, through that archway, I'll meet you around there. Anyway, went back down to the car and went to get into the car, and as I went to get into the car, the guy actually came down, and he came down with somebody else, like a porter or something, but they both had the same. It was very much like Men in Black. They had white shirts on, black trousers, black waistcoats. They were very menacing looking. What I noticed about, compared to the hotel manager, the guy that was with him was built like the Incredible Hulk. He was huge, he was massive. He had muscles on muscles. And they said to me before I got in the car, where's the wedding cake? And I said, it's in the trunk, in the boot of the car. So I went round to the back of the car, and they were both stood there next to each other, very, very silently. It's 11 o'clock at night, it's dark. I opened the boot to say, look, here's the cake stuff. And they started having a conversation with me as my back was facing them to the boot. And all I could hear was the really big guy. I don't know what the conversation was. That's gone. But what really stood out was the fact that this really big guy kept turning around to the hotel manager and saying, yes, sir, if that's what you want me to do, yes, sir, but in a really menacing way. And I was starting to panic. I'm thinking, what am I doing here in the middle of the night at this hotel? And I got back into the car, turned the car around, and drove it very slowly through a big stone archway to the kitchens at the back. Now, as I'm doing that, the two guys, the hotel manager plus this other guy that's built like Incredible Hulk, were in front of my car, leading my car through the archway. It looked like a funeral procession where the guys are at the front, but walking in exact synchronicity to one another, very, very slowly. I'm following them in the car at about 2 miles an hour, thinking, oh my God, what is going on here? This is crazy. Fear is starting to well up in me. It was awful. Anyway, I came around to the kitchens. I carried my stuff, the cakes and everything. My hands are shaking up to the kitchens, and it was a very old kitchen full of stainless steel things. It had a huge walk-in fridge, which frightened the living daylights out of me for reasons I'll go into in a minute. And I got in there, and these two guys, as I set up the cake and I start working on the cake, and my hands are shaking like crazy by this point, they are stood right behind me, silently, not saying a word, completely intimidating. And I'm like, and in the end I turned around and said, why are you stood there? Oh, we're just watching. I was like, oh God, okay, fine. And eventually they stood there about an hour, and I was shaking so much I could hardly do anything with the cake, but I was trying to concentrate on it at the same time. Eventually they left. And before they left, they said, when the cake is finished, would you like to go and put it in the walk-in fridge? I said, where's the walk-in fridge? They showed me where the walk-in fridge is, and I approached it, and they opened the door, and they both stood back, and they wanted me to walk in, and I'm like, no, I'm not walking in that walk-in fridge, no way. And I was like, right, okay, I may put it in there later. Thank you very much for showing me where it is, but I'll see. Anyway, eventually they left. So I'm trying to carry on with this cake, I'm trying to get it finished, I'm trying to put sugar flowers on it and doing what I need to do with it. There was a fly, you know, the electric fly zappers on the wall behind me, and every so often it'd make that horrible buzzy noise, zap noise, as a fly got caught in it. And every time it did that, I would jump and nearly scream out my wits. I was that scared. Then from within the hotel somewhere, I heard a scream. I literally heard a scream. And I'm thinking, oh my God, just get the cake done, just get the cake done, just get out here, get on with it. It's probably about 2 o'clock in the morning by now. I am exhausted. It's crazy. And I thought, right, I finally finished the cake and I'm packing up, and I'm thinking, just pack up, just get out of here, just get out of here. And I thought, should I put this cake in the walk-in fridge? And as I walked towards the fridge, there was a big note on the front of the fridge, which I swear hadn't been there earlier on. And it was a note to the chef employees within the hotel about what to put in the fridge and where to put it and in what order, you know, sort of health and safety things. And it was signed the head chef, and it was my twin flame's name. And at that point I went, oh my God, completely freaked. And I literally ran down a corridor, couldn't find my way out. Ran down several corridors actually with my cake supplies and my car keys and everything. And I just kept running down corridors, and there seemed to be no end to the corridors. Eventually I found a fire exit and just ran through the fire exit, and I got into the car and thought, I just need to get out of here now. It was so surreal and so crazy and so scary. And as I drove back through the archway to the main gate, if you can imagine a very old English hotel in the dead of night with a church next to it, it was ridiculous. Overgrown plants, weeds in places, trees. As I came through the archway, I came through to a big pair of iron gates which were open, and as I drove towards them thinking, oh thank God I'm out of here, suddenly about at least 20 employees walked out the front of the hotel, all in the same uniform, the white shirt, black trousers, black waistcoat. They all seemed to just come out as I was driving towards the gate, and they all walked right up to the gate, and I had to drive past them, and there's about 20 of them. This is the dead of night. There shouldn't have been that many staff at all, and I'm literally crapping myself at this point, thinking, just get out of here, just get out of here. Got out, and as I drove through the gates onto the road, I looked in my rearview mirror, and all of them had walked through the gates, and they were all stood behind me in the middle of the road watching me leave. So I parked a couple of streets away because I was too frightened to drive. I was feeling that sick and nauseous with fear that I stopped. And as I looked across the road, there was a fox, and he was huge. He just seemed to come out of the bushes, and he just stared at me for ages. And then my phone started going off. I started getting emails through. Now, at this point, I have no idea what the emails were saying. I have no idea at all. I cannot remember. But all I can remember them saying was, do not stop reading, do not stop reading. And I read them, and I have no idea what they said. Eventually, I managed to compose myself long enough to get myself home, and other things happened during that, but it was one of the most scariest episodes that I went through. Then after this happened, and during other things going off and me feeling like I was going absolutely crazy, the more fear that I got into, the more fear I created, although at that point I didn't realise what I was doing. But when you start to awaken, you can let the light in or the dark in, or at least you have to learn about the dark first to clear stuff, and that's what I was doing. My chakras were opening extremely quickly, and I was clearing each chakra. So I was clearing the root chakra, which was fears and doubts and everything that you're scared of coming up, and that's exactly what started happening. And then one particular night I was sat in my room crying my eyes out over my twin, wondering what to do, thinking my life was over, seriously contemplating, I just shouldn't be here, I can't cope with this anymore. And my phone lit up, my iPhone lit up, and it wasn't on, it just lit up, and the following words appeared on the screen of the iPhone, which was, the universe will never give you any more than you can handle. Which freaked me out. And then an eye appeared, and it was the most beautiful blue eye I've ever seen. and it appeared on my phone on the screen. Again, my phone was off, so there was no way, and it had not come from anywhere. And I stared at that eye all night, and I kept closing my eyes, thinking, I'll close my eyes and it'll go away. This is a dream. This isn't happening. And I'd close my eyes for a few seconds and think, right, when I open them, it's gone. And I'd open my eyes and it was still there. And I tried switching it off, switching it on, although it wasn't on to start with, and it wouldn't disappear. That was up for several hours, I think, the picture, and I cried like I've never cried before all night, as I started to pray. Pretty much, I started to pray for the first time in, I don't know how long, about, please save me, help me understand what's going on, why is this happening? And from there, there's too much to go into. There's so many incidents that really, but what was happening was I was rising up through my chakras, clearing and healing them. I was collapsing timelines, parallels, all at the same time, not realizing what I was doing. I was having visions of my twin being beaten and whipped really badly till he was bleeding. I actually went round there in the middle of the night and begged him to let me see his back, to prove to me that it was just a vision, that it wasn't. I would phone him and say, we've got to go now, we've got to leave. Completely crazy stuff. This is why I've said before, as you're going through the awakening, don't bother about other people at this point, especially if you're going through it like that. And I know other people have, because I've had emails, I've been in contact, I've helped people out who are going through similar to this. I don't bother about what other people are thinking, because eventually it does calm down. Now, I was shown a lot I had to come off Facebook, I had to stop seeing people, I couldn't go out without something happening awful to me. I realised that every time I got in the car and put on the radio, I was listening to sad songs. That's all that would come up. Really, really heart-wrenching sad songs would come up, which would just send me into floods of tears. And I'm trying to deliver a cake while in floods of tears over my twin, listening to all these sad songs on the radio, and thinking, why do these come on? Why are you making me cry more? And I went through this for several months, and there was combinations of different things. The false twin flame that I was seeing, he had dead butterflies all over his house, and I'm not talking one or two. I used to clean for him as well sometimes, and I would go around and pick up 10 or 20 dead butterflies at a time, and not, I think, why the hell, why these dead butterflies everywhere. And it was angels and guides telling me, this is not the right road to go down, move away from this is bad. He is on the darker side. It turns out that he was actually Illuminati. So this is the darker side of things. This is not going to happen to all of you. It's going to come around in different ways, in different experiences, different feelings. You may have visions, you may see things, you may just hear things. I heard a lot of things while going through this, but all of this got me to a point where, should I leave? Should I give up? And then I started being led to videos on YouTube. I started having to learn. While I was really in it, when it was really dark, I was learning about Aleister Crowley, I was learning about quantum physics, I was learning about John Lennon, and the Beatles and Paul McCartney, stories with them, an awful lot of things, till I started to get a grip on things and started to realise that you have a choice and you can get a grip on things. And the things that I was being shown, I'd have things appear on YouTube in the recommended section, but they wouldn't just appear as recommended, they would appear as recommended 1 second ago. Now, 5 minutes ago, immediately, read immediately, look at it immediately. And through that, I started very, very slowly to pull out of it. I came onto YouTube. I started to learn that my thoughts control things, that my thoughts, I can carry on going through the dark, or I can pull up, face my fears, which I did. I had to face fears going through all of that and more, to come out onto the other side, or I wouldn't be here now. It's as simple as that. I think that was part of the choice that I had to make, and I know a lot of you go through that as well. And I will go through the switch. A switch happened as I went through this, where I started to realise that I was controlling things, that I could do things, overcome things, overcome fears, face the fears, pick up new skills. I started to realise the gifts that were coming through to me as well. So this is part 2. This is the departure. This is the call to action, the resistance that you put up as you're going through the changes, because you don't want to change at that point, and depending on how much you don't want to change depends on how much will be brought to you, brought into your awareness to make you change, to make you realise that there is more to this life than the normal life, than the being asleep part, that there is something much bigger going on in the world to start to wake you up and to overcome all of that. And also during that time when I was completely isolated, I couldn't get any help. If I tried to look up any help on Google or on the internet, my computer would just shut down completely. It would go blank, or I would go through to a website thinking, maybe this website has got the answers, maybe I can get help from here, and I'd go through and the page was killed, the page was 404 error, doesn't exist, that sort of thing. So, and that happened time and time again. And I'd send emails to people who were already awake, because I was starting to think this is really supernatural, so I need to speak to somebody who's psychic, or somebody who's whatever this awakened thing is. And I'd send it and I'd never get an answer back. I couldn't get in touch with anybody. Nobody would come and help me, because at that point it was something I had to go through myself and learn myself. So eventually I could get through to people, and I did start to get help, and this switch happened where I started to realise what was going on, and I started to control my thoughts. And once I started to control my thoughts and started to get positive about things, everything started changing around me. The problems that I'd had started being sorted out. Everything started to come together again. So I'm probably going to stop here, because it was this is enough woo-woo for anybody. I think there are so many other instances as well. But this is, like I said, sometimes it appears to you, and I was getting messages, hearing messages and hearing things, and things appearing on the internet. And this is why I stopped watching TV to start with. I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't watch anything. Things were manifesting around me at such a quick pace, but unfortunately they were manifesting in a scary way, because I was going through my lower chakra openings, and they were manifesting. What I was thinking of was manifesting, but I couldn't make that connection to start with. Plus, I think when you move up from 3D through to 5D and start to move and start to ascend, the darker side will come in and try and stop you. They'll say, hang on a minute, she's waking up, stop it. Let's bring some stuff in here. Let's try and stop this happening. Let's see if she can really face her fears. Let's see if this can be overcome, because we don't want you to wake up. We don't want the planet to ascend. We don't want peace on earth. We don't want harmony. So we're going to bring in everything we can to start with to try and stop this. And if we can get you to give up, then brilliant. The darkness have done their job. But you have to face that, and you have to move through it. And I honestly think that once you go past 4D, it stops, or pretty much stops once you've become a master of both worlds, because that's what you have to learn as you go through this process. A master of the normal world and a master of the ethereal, fifth dimension size. I think most of the badness is in fourth dimension. I think most of the darkness is in them. Once you start to rise above that, the resistance, the interference starts to become a little bit less and less. And of course there's always going to be resistance there, because you're always spiritually growing and you're always striving and wanting change and peace within the world, and you're accepting to love yourself and everything else. But there's a certain point where I think where your guides and angels, when you finally become in connection with them, when you finally reach them, and when they can reach through to you and get you through what you're going through and overcoming your fears, getting through your programming, breaking down barriers, once you've got through all of that darkness really cannot harm you, because you then know at that point that you are completely protected and looked after and safe. But there has to be, you have to do some work on your part, for most of us, I think, to get through and to be willing and want to go through an ascension process. Now obviously it's already pre-planned for you, you've already decided to do that. Some of you won't make it. On the whole though, most of you, 99.9% of you, are going to make it, and you're going to go through it to one degree or another. Most of you may not go through it in the way that I've gone through it, because mine was very, very physical. It came through very physically. The other side of things, I must say, must have had to work extremely hard for them to manifest and make these things appear, to give these messages through, to get me off the path that I was on, which was completely the wrong path, and onto the right one, by making me face fears, etc., clear, go within, realise who I really was, learn to love myself, all of that sort of thing, get rid of the lack of self-confidence, rise above it, become independent, realise that you are a spark of God, of the Creator. And they must, I mean, goodness knows what they did to make some of these things come in for me, but they really hammered me to start with, to get through things. And as I say, I went through it very quickly, and there's tons more stuff there, but I don't want to go too much more. And I still have bouts of fear. I still have bouts of manifesting what I don't want to manifest. I've mentioned before, if I get too low, I'll start seeing mad looking clowns everywhere, and that's my cue to, oh my god, right, raise yourself up again, because this is not what you want to see. That's just my warning, I think, to move through it. But we all have fear purges to go through. Once we go through this, it makes life a lot easier for us to face whatever is going to come in the world, because we are going through planetary changes. And if you can be awake, or you are awake, whenever the shift is going to happen, the event, whatever you want to call it, within the world, when this happens and when we start having to really face difficulties within the world in order to move over to peace and that, because it's not automatically we're going to wake up one morning and everything's rainbows and unicorns and fine. We are going to have to go through extreme earth changes, fall of governments, all sorts of things, in order to get to be free, to stop being a slave, to stop being a slave to demiurgic gods who have put control on us without our permission, and have done for years and years. So I'm going to start to stop here before I go too far. And this is the dark. So you are going to have to, we go through the call the call to adventure, as in the hero's journey. It's time for you to make a choice. Are you going to stay on the path that you're on? Are you going to move over to the new path of light? Are you going to choose love? Are you going to work through everything that you need to? There's getting through the resistance of, no, I'm not facing this. I'm not dealing with this. I'm going to go crawl in a corner, not having it. I want things to stay the same. I want to carry on drinking. I want to carry on doing what I'm doing. I don't want things to change. That has to be pushed through. Your mind has to become open. You have to realise that you are infinite consciousness, and then facing the fears and overcoming the fears. It's at that point things start to get really good. You start to notice a change, a switch is switched, where you start to realise that actually what you're thinking and your thoughts as a co-creator are bringing things through for you. And that's when the rewards start to come in, and the potential of you realising who you are, where you came from, just remembering what you are, who you are, and the fact that at this point you are connected. You have made the choice between good and evil, dark, and you can start to be on the good side. Not that we ever deliberately choose the evil side or the darker side of things. I think I went through what I went through to make me realise that there is dark out there, that things do happen, to stop me burying my head in the sand, and feeling sorry for myself and feeling like a victim and feeling like the whole world was against me, etc., to bring through that. And that's going to happen for a lot of people, but in a lot of different ways. So, okay, this is this is part 2, and this has gone on long enough. Click up on the link in the corner, that'll take you through to part 1, and I will do part 3 next week, because yay, we're onto the lighter side of things. We're onto moving it through, guides and mentors who will come in to help you making a commitment to your journey. Once you realise what your journey is and what you're here for. Mine is obviously the twin flame journey, which is very much like the hero's journey. And once you get to that point, you make that commitment and think, okay, I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to change things, and I'm going to try and help as many other people as I can, because it's not just about coming into union with your twin flame and being with them. And even if you're not in a twin flame relationship, this is just about awakening, deciding what only is not good for you, what is good for you, but what is good for humanity, how you can serve humanity best, how you can change things for the better, how you can change things so that your daughters, your sons, your family, your children, your grandchildren will not have to go through half the things that you have gone through growing up. So take care. I'll speak to you soon. I shall be doing the angel cards soon, and I think questions and everything below. I would imagine it will
after
probably
that one,
bring up a load
get some green tea or
questions.
And,
that was quite a lot for me to go through, and I had written down a load of other things as well, but I've run out.
I'm not going to go through
Very
them all.
exhausted now.
I think I was trying to get across
I'll get this out, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.
when you start dealing with guides and angels, and once you start breaking through and breaking out of the programming, there is going to be a lot of resistance there in some cases, again depending on how you chose to wake up in the first place. So there are, and depending on how deeply you were asleep to start with, depends on how hard your guides and angels, your connection with the creator, with infinite source, is going to knock at your door to get your attention. And mine was very extreme, and that was just a very small part of what I went through. And they weren't hallucinations, they weren't anything like that. In fact, my iPhone blue screened in the end. I was threatening to get a load of information together and go to the police with it, and it blue screened on me. So and I've got people around me as well, and sort of friends now, and people that I know that have been through similar experiences, that go through a certain process, not in the same way as me, but we all go through this. There is a process to it. There is, rhyme and reason to it. And I've got, witnesses now to things that I go through in the twin flame community, and friends that are also awakened as well. So it's yeah, whatever. So I'm going for a cuppa now. As I say, part 3 will be out next week, and that will be so much lighter, because that's the switch over when you start to realise that your thoughts are creating things. And once you've worked through those dark fears and dark things that you have to work through, the light starts to come on and the light starts to shine in. Yay! Thank goodness. And there comes a point when you just have so much faith and trust in the universe and in infinite source, and in the light, and in your your higher self, and everything, that how protected you are, how safe you are, and that you are guided each and every day to do the right thing, and you're being led in the right direction. But again, you have free will to drop out at any time, I suppose. But I think once you've made that commitment and you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. There is no going back to sleep after some experiences that you may have and go through. And once you just realise that this world is infinite, completely infinite, and there's not just us here, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So anyway, namaste. I hope it helps. It's taken me a long time to come out with some of that, but I think I've got to the point now where if I'd have tried to talk about it a year ago or even 6 months ago, I probably would have cried all the way through, because it would still bring up fears and doubts within me. And I would have been scared of reliving it within my mind, or talking about it, or going through it again. But I've got to the point where it's just... it was an experience, and that experience doesn't bother me anymore. It was a very steep learning curve, a very steep learning experience, but I'm out on the other side of it now. So, right, namaste. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.